The afternoon sun was slipping slowly behind the trees, casting a warm amber glow over the quiet street where the Collins family lived. The scent of freshly cut grass filled the air, and somewhere nearby, children's laughter echoed faintly. Max, the family's beloved golden retriever, lay stretched out on the porch steps, basking in the last warmth of the day. He was more than a pet. He was a guardian, a constant presence who filled the house with life and comfort. Mrs. Collins called from the kitchen window. "Max, come here, boy." The dog lifted his head, ears perked, and trotted over happily, his tail wagging like a banner of joy. Tommy, the youngest son, threw a ball across the yard, and Max leapt after it, catching it mid-air with a snap. His playful bark mingled with the evening breeze. Everything seemed perfect in those ordinary moments. But then, as the sun dipped lower, Max noticed something beyond the gate, a flicker of movement, a scent carried by the wind. Without warning, he slipped quietly through the slightly open gate, disappearing down the street. Tommy's shout came too late. "Max, come back!" But the dog was gone, swallowed by the shadows of the fading light. The family stood frozen, disbelief settling over them like a heavy fog. The following days turned into restless nights. Flyers with Max's picture were plastered on every telephone pole and lamppost. Neighbors joined the search, combing the parks and back alleys. Mrs. Collins spent hours on the phone, pleading with shelters, hoping for a call that never came. "He cannot be gone," she whispered, clutching Max's worn collar as if it held a piece of his spirit. Mr. Collins promised, "We will find him, no matter how long it takes." Tommy refused to let go of hope. Every creak of the floor, every distant bark made his heart leap. In the quiet moments before sleep, he imagined Max sneaking back through the gate, tired but safe. But the house remained silent, colder than before. The absence of Max was a constant, aching presence, like a wound that refused to heal. As the weeks stretched into months, the family's hope grew fragile but never broke. They lived in the shadows of that day, the day Max vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that would shadow their lives for years. Unseen by them, far from the familiar streets and the family who loved him, Max's journey was only just beginning. Something had called him away, something that would change everything they believed about their loyal dog. The question lingered, heavy and unanswered. Where had Max gone, and why had he disappeared? The days following Max's disappearance stretched on like endless shadows. The Collins household moved through its routines, but everything felt hollow, like a book missing its most important page. Mrs. Collins sat by the window each morning, watching the street as if willing Max to appear. Her hands trembled as she held the small notebook where she had scribbled letters to Max, words spoken into the quiet air. "Come home, Max," she wrote one evening, her voice breaking. "We miss you more than you could ever know." But the only answer was silence. Mr. Collins worked longer hours, his face etched with exhaustion and worry. At every shelter, every animal control office, he asked about a golden retriever matching Max's description. "He's gentle, shy around strangers, and has a scar on his right paw," he told the shelter worker, who shook her head with sympathy but no news. One rainy afternoon, standing soaked and cold outside a shelter, Mr. Collins whispered to himself, "We cannot give up. Not now." Tommy, now 9, clung fiercely to hope. Every creak in the house made him jump. Every distant bark made his heart pound with a desperate wish. At night he lay awake, clutching Max's worn collar to his chest, imagining the dog's soft breathing and warm body beside him. "He would never leave us," Tommy told his mother, eyes wide with certainty. "Max is out there. I can feel it." But even as he said it, a quiet fear tugged at his heart, a fear of never seeing his friend again. Their friends and neighbors tried to comfort them, but no words could fill the emptiness Max had left behind. The house felt colder, less alive. The porch where Max once lounged was empty. The echoes of his paws no longer filled the hallways. Yet the Collins family refused to let despair win. Somewhere deep inside, a stubborn flame of hope burned, fragile but unbroken. Unknown to them, far beyond the familiar streets and cozy home, Max faced challenges that no one could have imagined. He was surviving in a world full of dangers and strangers, his instincts sharpened by every moment away. But no matter how far he wandered or how long the journey, the bond between Max and the Collins family stretched invisible across the miles, a tether stronger than absence or silence. And so, while the Collins family waited and hoped, Max's story unfolded elsewhere, quietly weaving the threads of a secret that would one day change everything. One early morning, as a soft mist hung low over the neighborhood, the front door of the Collins home creaked open. The air was cool and still, carrying the scent of dew and earth. There on the porch stood Max, older, thinner, and quieter than anyone remembered. His golden fur was dulled, dusted with grime, and faint scars marked his body like silent stories. The family's breath caught all at once. For a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. "Max," Mrs. Collins whispered, stepping forward cautiously, her voice trembling with disbelief and hope. Max did not rush into their arms. Instead, he remained still, eyes scanning every face with a calm wariness. His tail gave a slight, tentative wag, but his usual excitement was gone, replaced by a quiet strength that unsettled them all. Tommy reached out a trembling hand, fingers brushing against Max's roughened fur. "We missed you," he said softly, tears glistening in his eyes. The dog's gaze locked with Tommy's, steady and unreadable, as if holding a secret far deeper than they could guess. The house seemed to breathe again, but Max moved through it like a shadow, present yet distant. He avoided loud noises and flinched at sudden movements, behaviors none of them had seen before. Mrs. Collins noticed the scars, one near his shoulder, another faint but jagged along his flank. "Where have you been, Max?" she asked quietly in the stillness of the evening, but the dog only looked away, eyes filled with silent memories. As the family tried to reconnect, a subtle tension lingered in the air. Max was not the same dog who had disappeared. There was a watchfulness in his eyes, a silent knowledge that hinted at things left unspoken. The neighbors noticed it too, how Max moved with careful steps, how he seemed to listen to sounds beyond their reach. He was no longer just a family pet, he was something else, something changed by the years away. That night, as the family gathered around the fireplace, a sense of uneasy wonder filled the room. Max lay curled at their feet, quiet but alert. The secret he carried was locked inside him, waiting for the right moment to unfold. And the Collins family knew deep down that the story of Max's disappearance was only the beginning of a far greater journey. Days passed quietly in the Collins household, but something had shifted. Max no longer sought the lively games or joyful greetings of before. Instead, he moved with a careful watchfulness, his eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. It was as if he carried a secret weight, one that made him cautious and distant. Mrs. Collins noticed these changes with a mix of concern and curiosity. "He's watching something we cannot see," she murmured one evening, her gaze following Max as he stood by the window, ears alert. Tommy, too, sensed the difference. One afternoon, he sat quietly in the garden while Max lay nearby. A small bird fluttered close, hesitant and nervous. Instead of chasing it, Max remained still, his gaze softening in a way that spoke of gentle understanding. "You remember kindness," Tommy whispered, reaching out a hand to stroke Max's head. For a moment, the dog's eyes met his, and in them was a spark of the dog he once was, the playful companion who had loved without limits. But there were other signs, quieter and harder to understand. Max flinched at sudden noises and avoided busy streets. His scars seemed to tell stories of struggle, battles fought in places far from home. One evening, Mr. Collins found Max staring intently at the edge of the yard, his body tense, as if waiting for something or someone. "He is guarding us," Mr. Collins said softly, watching the dog's silent vigil. The family began to piece together these clues. Max's behavior hinted at experiences beyond what they had imagined. It was clear he had survived dangers that left their mark on both his body and spirit. The dog who once only knew their quiet street had learned lessons in survival, trust, and protection in worlds they had never seen. Yet the most mysterious part was Max's silence. He did not bark or whine for attention. Instead, he communicated through small gestures, nudges, glances, in the steady presence he kept close to each family member. It was as if he carried a message only they could understand, a secret held in the quiet moments they shared. The Collins family felt both relief and unease. Max was home, but he was changed. The dog who had disappeared was back, but the story of his time away was waiting to be told. Slowly, carefully, through the silent signs he left in his wake. The afternoon light filtered softly through the curtains when the doorbell rang, breaking the quiet rhythm of the Collins household. Mrs. Collins opened the door to find an elderly man standing there, his eyes sharp and knowing beneath a weathered hat. "I'm Joe," he said simply, holding out a hand. "I knew Max from a long time ago." The family exchanged surprised looks, unsure of what to expect. Joe stepped inside and sat quietly, his voice low but steady as he began to share stories of a side of Max they had never seen. "He wasn't just a pet," Joe said, looking directly at Max, who lay curled by the fire. "Max became a protector, watching over a group of stray animals in a place where danger was always close." The family listened intently as Joe described Max's courage, his quiet leadership in a harsh world where survival depended on trust and strength. "He helped save others," Joe explained, his eyes reflecting memories of difficult times. When threats came, Max was the first to stand firm. The scars on his body tell stories of those battles. The Collins family felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. The dog they had lost had become something far greater, a silent hero who carried out missions beyond their understanding. Tommy's eyes widened as Joe recounted tales of Max guiding lost animals to safety, warning others of danger, and forming unlikely friendships that helped them all survive. "He didn't just survive," Joe said. "He became a guardian." The family looked at Max with newfound respect, sensing the deep bond he had formed with those creatures and the strength he had gained in his absence. Mrs. Collins reached down to stroke Max's head gently. "You've always been more than we realized," she whispered. For the first time, the mystery of Max's disappearance seemed less like a loss and more like a journey, a mission that had taken him far from home, but never from the heart of those who loved him. That evening, the family sat together, the fire casting flickering shadows as they absorbed Joe's stories. Max lay quietly among them, no longer just their dog, but a guardian whose secret was slowly coming to light. The return was no longer just a reunion. It was the start of understanding the life Max had lived while they waited, hoping in silence. The days after Joe's visit carried a new light for the Collins family. Max's presence shifted in their eyes, from a lost pet to a silent hero whose courage had been shaped by the friendships he had forged far from home. Joe had told them how Max had not only survived but had connected deeply with creatures no one expected, a wild fox and a stray cat among them. These unlikely companions had watched each other's backs, navigating dangers in a world where trust was rare and survival was a daily battle. Tommy watched Max closely as they played in the garden one afternoon. Max's eyes softened when a skittish stray dog appeared near the fence, trembling and cautious. Instead of barking or chasing it away, Max moved slowly, lowering his body and giving a gentle nudge. Tommy smiled softly. "You remember what it means to be gentle," he said, reaching out to pet Max's head. In that quiet moment, Max's fierce protector softened into the friend they all loved. Joe's stories revealed that Max's friendships had been more than survival tactics. They had been lifelines. In the wild places where Max had lived, danger lurked in every shadow. Yet the bond between the dog, the fox, and the cat created a small family, one that offered safety and hope when none seemed possible. Together, they had faced storms, predators, and loneliness, learning from each other in ways that transcended words. Back home, the Collins family noticed how Max's behavior reflected these lessons. He approached other animals with patience, his watchful eyes carrying the wisdom of years spent protecting and being protected. The quiet strength that had returned with Max was not just physical. It was born from these hidden friendships, from bonds forged in the harshest moments. That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Mrs. Collins sat beside Max, whispering, "You taught us something we never expected." The dog rested his head on her knee, calm and steady, a living reminder that sometimes the strongest connections are found in the most unlikely places. and that friendship, even in silence, can be the greatest kind of courage. The scars on Max's body told a story far beyond what words could capture. One evening, as the family gathered around the fireplace, Joe pointed to a deep mark near Max's shoulder. "That one," he said softly, "came from a fight. Max was defending a younger pup from a wild animal, a desperate stand in the dark." The room grew still, the firelight flickering against faces filled with awe and sadness. Mrs. Collins knelt beside Max, her fingers tracing the rough edges of the scar. "You carried so much pain all this time," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Max met her gaze calmly, as if acknowledging the weight of every battle he had faced. Each mark was a silent testament to his strength, a reminder of the fierce love that had driven him to protect others, no matter the cost. Joe continued, telling how another scar had been earned in a narrow escape through thorny bushes. "It wasn't just survival," he explained. "It was about determination. Max refused to give up, no matter how hard the path." The family listened closely, their hearts swelling with respect for the dog who had endured so much. They began to understand that these scars were not signs of weakness, but of courage, etched in flesh like medals of honor. Mr. Collins watched quietly, realizing how much they had missed. The dog they thought they knew had been carrying stories in silence, stories of pain, sacrifice, and bravery. Max was more than a pet. He was a warrior of a quiet kind. The scars were reminders of battles fought in places no one else saw, battles that shaped him into the protector he was now. That night, as Max settled into his bed, the family gathered close. Mrs. Collins spoke softly. "We never knew what you went through, but we see you now. We see your strength, your heart." Max closed his eyes, resting peacefully, as if finally allowed to lay down the burdens he had carried alone. The scars spoke volumes in their silence, and the Collins family began to understand that sometimes the deepest stories are told not with words but with the quiet marks left on those who carry the weight of survival. At the local animal shelter where Mrs. Collins volunteered, an old janitor named Sam quietly swept the floors and emptied trash bins. He had seen countless animals come and go, each with its own story, but Max's return was different. Sam noticed something unusual about the dog, a silent depth in his eyes that spoke of faraway places and experiences no one could explain. One evening, as Mrs. Collins helped clean kennels, Sam pulled her aside. "You know," he said quietly, voice rough but kind, "I once saw a dog like Max years ago, injured but fierce. He was protecting a small group of frightened animals in an abandoned warehouse outside town." Mrs. Collins looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure?" she asked. Sam nodded slowly. "I didn't know his name, but the way he stood guard, like he carried the weight of the world. I will never forget him." The story struck a chord deep within Mrs. Collins. Could that dog have been Max? She thought back to Joe's tales, the scars, and Max's watchful nature. Sam's words added another layer to the mystery, a silent witness who had seen parts of Max's journey others had missed. Sam's quiet presence brought a new perspective to the family. He reminded them that sometimes the bravest acts go unnoticed by most, but are carried in the memories of those who watch closely. Max's story was not just one of disappearance and return. It was a tale of courage witnessed by few, but felt by many. As Mrs. Collins looked at Max that evening, the dog's calm eyes met hers with a steady strength. The secret he held was slowly unfolding, seen not only by the family, but by those who had quietly watched from the edges, like Sam, the janitor who saw everything. The night air was thick with quiet as the Collins household settled into sleep. Outside, the moon cast pale silver light across the yard, turning shadows into silent watchers. Tommy lay awake, drawn by a strange feeling he could not explain. From the corner of his room, he noticed Max standing at the window, eyes locked on something beyond the fence. The dog's body was tense, muscles ready, every sense alert. Curiosity pulled Tommy from his bed. He slipped on his slippers and quietly followed Max into the cool night. The dog led him to a narrow gap in the backyard fence, a passage Tommy had never noticed before. Max slipped through without hesitation, his movements smooth and purposeful. Tommy's heart pounded as he hurried after him, the soft rustle of leaves beneath his feet barely breaking the stillness. Beyond the fence in the darkened alley, Max approached a small, trembling figure caught in a tangled mess of wire. It was a young fox, its eyes wide with fear, its body scraped and bleeding. Tommy's breath caught in his throat. Without hesitation, Max began to gently nudge the trapped animal, carefully loosening the wire with his teeth. The fox looked at Max with a mixture of trust and relief, as if recognizing a protector. As Max guided the fox back through the fence, Tommy whispered, "You've been protecting them all this time." Max looked up, eyes shining with quiet understanding. For the first time, the secret Max had carried in silence was clear. He had not wandered aimlessly. He had been on a mission to watch over and save those who could not protect themselves. Back inside, the family watched anxiously as Tommy returned with Max and the rescued fox. Mrs. Collins knelt down, tears streaming, her voice trembling. "You never left us, did you?" she asked softly. Max rested his head on her lap, calm and steady. The dog who had disappeared had returned not just as a family companion, but as a silent guardian. That night, the Collins family understood that Max's secret was one of courage, compassion, and purpose. The dog who vanished for years carried a mission far greater than they had ever imagined, a mission that had only just begun to reveal itself. The days following Max's rescue mission settled into a new rhythm, one of quiet healing and rediscovery. The fox, now safely cared for by the family, became a symbol of the fragile life Max had fought to protect. Inside the house, wounds, both visible and invisible, began to mend. Max moved more freely now, his scars still present, but no longer a burden that weighed him down. Mrs. Collins watched Max with renewed hope. "You've come back to us," she said softly, brushing her fingers through his fur. Max looked up, eyes warm but calm, as if he understood the depth of her words. The family's bond was stronger now, forged in the fires of absence, mystery, and return. They were healing, not just Max's body, but their hearts as well. Inspired by Max's journey, Mrs. Collins took a bold step. She started a small animal rescue program in their neighborhood, determined to offer hope to stray animals like Max once was. Tommy eagerly joined, learning how to care for injured creatures and offering kindness to those overlooked. Together, they transformed their loss into a mission of compassion and love. Mr. Collins often said, "Max taught us what it means to never give up." And in this healing, the family found purpose beyond pain. Max was no longer just the dog who disappeared. He was a symbol of resilience, a living reminder that even in the darkest times, hope can grow. As the fox slowly regained strength and the house filled with soft life once more, the Collins family knew their story was far from over. It was only the beginning. That night, as Max curled up by the fire, the family sat close, hearts connected in a quiet understanding. The past scars had become marks of survival. The secret Max carried had brought them together in ways they never expected. Healing was not just about returning to what was. It was about becoming something new, together. Max never lost his watchful eyes. Even as the neighborhood settled into its quiet rhythm, he remained alert, a steady guardian who sensed dangers before they appeared. The Collins family noticed how Max's instincts had sharpened, not just to protect his family, but to watch over every stray and lost animal nearby. He had become more than a pet. He was a silent protector whose presence brought a calm reassurance to all who crossed his path. One afternoon, as Tommy walked Max through the neighborhood park, a frightened stray dog darted from the bushes, trembling and wary. Max approached slowly, his body low and movements gentle. He nudged the dog softly, inviting trust with a patience born from years of hardship. Tommy watched, amazed at the quiet strength Max carried. "You are their guardian now," he whispered. The dog's eyes reflected a story of survival, much like Max's own. The Collins family began to see Max as a legend in their small community, a hero whose bravery didn't need loud declarations. His actions spoke through gentle nudges, watchful glances, and a protective presence that made even the most scared animals feel safe. Max's journey had taught them that courage often comes without fanfare. It lives quietly in the heart and shows itself in simple, powerful ways. That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Mrs. Collins sat beside Max on the porch. "You've done more than protect us," she said softly. You've taught us all about strength, compassion, and the power of silent courage. Max rested his head on her lap, calm and steady. The dog who disappeared had returned with a mission beyond words, a mission that would leave its mark on every life he touched. Years had passed since Max's quiet return. The Collins family often gathered together on the porch in the soft twilight, sharing stories and memories. Max lay beside them, peaceful and whole, his eyes reflecting the calm of a soul finally at rest. The scars that once told tales of hardship were now just part of his story, a story woven into the very fabric of the family's life. Mrs. Collins reached down to stroke Max's head gently, whispering, "You showed us what love really means." Tommy leaned in, resting his hand on Max's back, feeling the steady beat of a heart that had endured so much. They had all been forever changed by the dog who disappeared for years and returned carrying a secret deeper than anyone could have imagined. The family understood now that love does not vanish, even when those we hold dear seem lost. It transforms and grows stronger, stretching across time and distance like an unbreakable thread. Max's journey had taught them about hope, courage, and the quiet heroism that sometimes lives in the smallest acts of loyalty and protection. As the night deepened, Max's eyes met each family member's gaze, a silent reminder of the bond they shared, one that would never fade. The dog who had carried a secret for so long had finally found his place again, not just in their home, but in their hearts. Their lives were intertwined forever, forever changed by the journey of a loyal dog whose silent courage had become a beacon of love and strength. Please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories of hope, courage, and the incredible bonds that connect us all. And tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment where a loyal friend showed strength beyond what you expected?